Behind the pulpit, they preach holiness, hope, and redemption. But off the stage, some carried secrets that would shake the very foundations of their ministries. From hidden affairs and financial fraud to shocking betrayals that rocked entire congregations, these are the moments the church tried to forget. In this video, we uncover 15 shocking scandals black pastors try to hide. Stories of power, temptation, and redemption that remind us that even those who preach light can sometimes walk in the shadows. 1.
God says, I'm calling your game.
Bishop Eddie Long, the rise and fall of a spiritual giant. For decades, Bishop Eddie Long stood as one of the most influential figures in the modern black church. As a charismatic leader of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia, he preached prosperity, purity, and purpose. Under his leadership, the small congregation grew into a megachurch of over 25,000 members, and his words inspired millions across the world. To many, he wasn't just a pastor. He was a symbol of black excellence in ministry, a spiritual father to the lost, and a voice of authority in faith and culture. But behind the power suits, the confident sermons, and the adoring crowds, a storm was quietly brewing. In 2010, shocking allegations surfaced that would shake the Christian community to its core. 4 young men came forward, accusing Bishop Long of sexual misconduct, claiming he used his influence, gifts, and mentorship to manipulate them into inappropriate relationships. These weren't outsiders trying to tarnish his image. They were members of his own church family, boys he had personally mentored. When the lawsuits became public, the world watched in disbelief. How could a man who preached holiness be accused of something so dark? Long stood before his congregation, denying the allegations but choosing his words carefully. I'm under attack, he said, but I am not a perfect man. His calm defiance split the church into 2 worlds, those who believed in his innocence and those who could no longer see him the same way. The case was settled out of court in 2011, with reports suggesting millions were paid in confidential agreements. Though Long never admitted wrongdoing, the damage was done. Attendance at New Birth declined sharply. His reputation suffered deeply, and the once unshakable image of the powerful bishop began to crumble. In his final years, he appeared visibly thinner and weaker, sparking concerns about his health. In 2017, Bishop Eddie Long passed away at just 63 years old after battling cancer, leaving behind a legacy both celebrated and stained. 2.
That Jesus was Palestinian, that Jesus was an immigrant, and that
Pastor Jamal Bryant. From scandal to second chances, Pastor Jamal Bryant's rise in ministry was nothing short of meteoric. Known for his fiery sermons, intellectual sharpness, and magnetic presence, he captured the hearts of thousands with his ability to merge spirituality and social activism. As the founder of Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, Bryant became a voice for justice and a champion for the black community, often standing at the crossroads of faith and politics. To many, he was an embodiment of modern ministry, bold, relevant, and unafraid to challenge power. Yet behind the pulpit, Bryant's personal life told a more complicated story. At the height of his success, a scandal emerged that would threaten to undo everything he had built. It was revealed that he had fathered a child outside of his marriage to reality TV personality Gizelle Bryant. The news spread quickly, igniting a storm of criticism and disappointment within both the church and the public. For a man whose sermons often centered on morality, integrity, and accountability, the revelation cut deep. His marriage crumbled, his reputation took a massive hit, and his ministry faced questions of credibility. But Bryant didn't run from his mistakes. He faced them in a rare moment of vulnerability. He admitted his shortcomings before his congregation, acknowledging that even pastors can fall short of the standards they preach. I'm not perfect, he once declared, but I'm striving. That honesty, though painful, became the turning point in his journey. It allowed him to rebuild his life, step by step, with transparency and humility. 3. Bishop Lamar Whitehead, the pastor of luxury and the price of deception. In the bustling heart of Brooklyn, Bishop Lamar Whitehead built his image as a modern-day symbol of success and divine favor. With his designer suits, diamond watches, and Rolls-Royce parked outside the church, he was the pastor who preached prosperity and lived it loudly. Cameras loved him. Crowds followed him, and his social media pages gleamed with luxury. To his followers, Bishop Whitehead was proof that faith could make you flourish, that God's blessings weren't meant to be hidden but flaunted. But behind a glittering image of wealth and favor, a darker story began to unfold, one that would expose the cracks in his polished persona. In 2022, federal prosecutors charged Bishop Whitehead with fraud, extortion, and lying to the FBI. The most shocking allegation was that he had stolen $90,000 from a trusting church member, money she believed was being invested to secure her financial future. Instead, investigators said the pastor used it for his own lavish lifestyle. Designer clothes, luxury cars, and high-end indulgences. The news hit like a thunderclap. How could a man who preached abundance be accused of exploiting the very people who believe in him? The flashy bishop who once streamed sermons surrounded by gold furniture now stood before cameras and handcuffs, proclaiming his innocence. "I'm not guilty," he told reporters defiantly, insisting that the truth would eventually set him free. Yet, for many, the damage was already done. His name became synonymous with greed and deception, fueling debates about the growing prosperity gospel culture in modern churches. For Pastor John Gray, The Way to Temptation and the Battle for Redemption. Pastor John Gray rose to fame as one of the most charismatic and relatable voices in contemporary ministry. With his powerful storytelling, humor, and transparency, he connected with people from all walks of life. Once an associate pastor at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church, and later the leader of Relentless Church in South Carolina, Gray was admired for blending humor with heartfelt truth. His sermons often centered on family, integrity, and the grace of God, messages that resonated deeply with his audience. He wasn't just a preacher. He was a personality, a celebrity pastor with a global following and a growing platform on television. But fame can be a double-edged sword, and for Pastor Gray, it exposed the cracks in a carefully built image. Over the years, allegations of infidelity surfaced multiple times, each one more damaging than the last. Screenshots, voice messages, and leaked conversations painted a troubling picture of a man torn between his calling and his personal weaknesses. For someone who often spoke about marriage and faithfulness, the revelations cut especially deep. His wife, Avena Gray, stood beside him publicly, even as the world watched in disbelief and judgment. When the controversies broke, Pastor Gray took to the pulpit not with denial, but with confession. He admitted to emotional unfaithfulness and moments of moral failure, acknowledging that his actions had hurt the very people he loved most. "I'm not a perfect man," he said tearfully during one sermon, "but I am a man who is trying to do better." His honesty struck a chord. Some saw it as genuine repentance, while others viewed it as a cycle of sin and apology repeated too many times. 5. Reverend Al Sharpton, From Scandal to Statesman. Before he became a towering figure in American politics and civil rights, Reverend Al Sharpton was known simply as a fiery preacher from Brooklyn, with a voice that could move crowds and shake city halls. His sermons weren't confined to church walls. They spilled into the streets, into protests, into the heart of America's ongoing struggle for racial justice. With his sharp suits, booming rhetoric, and fearless advocacy, Sharpton became a national voice for the voiceless. But his rise to prominence came with turbulence, controversy, and lessons that would shape the man he later became. In the 1980s and 1990s, Sharpton faced mounting criticism and scrutiny over the finances of his organization, the National Action Network, NAN. Allegations surfaced of unpaid taxes, mismanaged funds, and questionable spending practices. Critics accused him of using his activism for personal gain, while his supporters insisted he was being targeted for his boldness in challenging systemic injustice. As media outlets and political opponents dug deeper, the once fiery preacher found himself painted as a man whose ambition blurred the lines between faith, activism, and finance. The controversies threatened to overshadow his work, but Sharpton did what few could. He evolved. Instead of retreating, he rebuilt his reputation through relentless advocacy and transparency. He faced his financial issues head-on, restructured his organization, and doubled down on his mission. His voice grew more measured, but no less powerful. Over time, he transitioned from street protests to national platforms, from controversy to credibility. Today, Reverend Al Sharpton stands as one of the most enduring figures in American activism, a minister who turned his trials into transformation. His story is not just about scandal, but about survival, not merely about mistakes, but about growth. From fiery preacher to respected civil rights leader, Sharpton's journey reminds the world that redemption is not about perfection, but perseverance, and that sometimes the loudest voices of change are the ones that learn from their own noise. 6.
Look at your neighbor and tell him, oh God, it will no more be postponed.
Bishop Clarence McClendon, the glamour, the fall, and the price of image. At one point in the 1990s, Bishop Clarence McClendon was one of the brightest stars in the American megachurch movement. Handsome, eloquent, and polished, he led the rapidly growing Church of the Harvest in Los Angeles and became a familiar face on Christian television networks. His sermons blended traditional gospel preaching with a modern sense of flair, and his charisma drew both celebrities and everyday worshipers. To many, McClendon was a picture of spiritual success, a pastor who embodied excellence, prosperity, and divine favor. But behind the lights and applause, trouble was brewing. In the early 2000s, news broke that Bishop McClendon's marriage had ended abruptly, followed by reports that he had quickly remarried not long after his divorce. The rapid transition raised eyebrows among both church members and the Christian media. Rumors of infidelity swirled, and the once celebrated bishop found himself at the center of a storm he couldn't preach his way out of. What had once been admiration turned into speculation, and soon his personal life became a tabloid topic. For a man who had built his ministry on integrity and vision, the fallout was devastating. Attendance at his church dropped, his public image dimmed, and colleagues in ministry distanced themselves from the scandal. The glare of television fame, once a source of pride, now became a reminder of how quickly glory can fade. The bishop who had preached about divine restoration suddenly had to live it. Yet over time, McClendon began rebuilding. He launched Clarence E. McClendon Ministries **, continued preaching internationally, and used his experiences as lessons about grace and human frailty. Though the shadows of the past never fully disappeared, his resilience allowed him to remain a voice in contemporary ministry. His story serves as a reflection of how power, image, and pressure can collide, and how even in public failure, faith can still find a quiet, humbler voice. 7.
More than the absence of doubt. Hitler.
Reverend Henry Lyons, power, greed, and the fall of a church leader. Reverend Henry Lyons once stood at the pinnacle of religious power. As the president of the National Baptist Convention, USA, one of the largest and most influential black church organizations in the world, Lyons was seen as a man of vision and leadership. He was respected by politicians, courted by the media, and admired by pastors across America. His rise to prominence was a testament to his intellect and charisma, a man who could move crowds and shape the spiritual direction of millions. But as his influence grew, so did his appetite for luxury, and soon the line between faith and fortune began to blur. In the late 1990s, revelations began to surface that would unravel everything Lyons had built. Investigators discovered that he had secretly diverted millions of dollars in church funds for personal gain. The money, meant for the work of the Lord, was allegedly used to buy luxury homes, jewelry, and expensive cars. The scandal deepened when it was revealed that some of these assets were linked to a woman he was accused of having an affair with, further tainting his image as a man of God. What began as whispers of misconduct quickly exploded into one of the biggest church corruption scandals in modern history. 8.
To tell you today, lift up your head, all ye
Prophet Brian Carn, the rise of a prophetic star and the shadows that followed. Prophet Brian Carn emerged as one of the most captivating prophetic voices of his generation. With his commanding presence, electrifying preaching, and uncanny ability to read the room, he became a sensation across revival stages and online platforms. Crowds filled auditoriums to witness his prophetic declarations. People weeping, shouting, and believing that God was speaking directly through him. To his supporters, Carn was more than a preacher. He was a vessel of divine insight, a spiritual prodigy chosen to lead a new era of prophetic ministry. But the brighter the spotlight, the darker the shadows that began to form behind it. In 2016, Prophet Karn's reputation took a severe hit when accusations surfaced that he had copied another prophet's messages and passed them off as divine revelation. Screenshots and video comparisons circulated online, showing eerie similarities between his prophecies and words previously spoken by another minister. For a man whose entire ministry rested on authenticity and divine connection, the allegation struck at the heart of his credibility. Karn denied intentionally deceiving anyone, insisting that the Holy Spirit can confirm similar messages through multiple voices. Yet, the damage was already done. His critics accused him of being more showman than seer, a performer using the language of prophecy to maintain fame and influence. Others whispered about inconsistencies in his personal life, claiming that the lifestyle he lived behind the pulpit didn't align with the holiness he preached. Every rumor, every accusation, chipped away at the polished image of a man once seen as untouchable. Still, despite the backlash, Prophet Brian Karn refused to disappear. He continued to preach, prophesy, and lead his ministry with renewed determination. To his loyal followers, his endurance in the face of controversy is proof that his calling is real, that even flawed vessels can still carry divine messages. To his critics, his persistence is a sign of pride, not perseverance. Yet one thing remains undeniable. Brian Karn's story embodies a tension between charisma and character, between the gift and the man who bears it. In the world of prophecy, where faith meets spectacle, his journey reminds us how fragile the line between anointing and ambition truly is. 9.
I'm not giving up and I'm not giving in, I'm holding on. Come on, I know my miracle's on the way.
Bishop Carlton Pearson, the price of a different gospel. For years, Bishop Carlton Pearson was one of the brightest lights in American Christianity, a gifted orator, musician, and spiritual leader whose influence reached millions. As the founder of Higher Dimensions Evangelistic Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Pearson's sermons filled arenas and aired on national television. He was mentored by legends like Oral Roberts and moved effortlessly among America's top church leaders. To his followers, he was a man of fire and revelation, a preacher whose words carried both intellect and inspiration. But few could have imagined how dramatically his message would change, or how heavy the cost of that change would be. In the early 2000s, Pearson began preaching a doctrine that would shake the foundation of traditional Christianity. During a time of deep reflection, he claimed that God had revealed to him a truth that most believers had misunderstood, that hell did not exist, and that all humanity was already saved through Christ's love, a belief he called the gospel of inclusion. He argued that a loving God could never condemn his own creation to eternal torment. What he saw as a message of compassion, others saw as heresy. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Former allies in ministry turned away. Church leaders publicly denounced him, and his megachurch membership plummeted. Once hailed as a voice of spiritual authority, Pearson found himself ostracized, labeled a false teacher, a fallen pastor, even a danger to the faith. The denomination he helped build stripped him of his credentials, and the grand sanctuary that once held thousands became nearly empty. The man who had preached to presidents in packed stadiums now stood on the margins of the faith community he once led. 10. Pastor Tony Smith, the preacher who thrived on controversy. In an era where many pastors aim to inspire through compassion and unity, Pastor Tony Smith has built his reputation on confrontation and controversy. From the pulpit of the Way of God Church of the Lord Jesus, based in Georgia, Smith has become infamous for his fiery sermons, not for their encouragement, but for their shock value. With a booming voice, old-school delivery, and unapologetic tone, he calls himself a man of truth in a world of compromise. But to many, his truth sounds more like hate than holiness. Smith's sermons have repeatedly sparked outrage for their offensive remarks toward women, LGBTQ+ individuals, and even fellow pastors. In countless viral clips, he has mocked other denominations, hurled insults at public figures, and ridiculed movements that promote equality or social justice. His rhetoric, laced with insults and extreme interpretations of Scripture, has drawn fierce criticism from both religious and secular audiences. For some, his church represents the dark side of dogma, a place where the pulpit becomes a weapon rather than a refuge. Yet, in the face of backlash, Tony Smith remains unshaken. He claims he is preaching the truth that others are too afraid to say, and insists that his harsh words are a form of righteous correction. He rejects political correctness, dismisses criticism as persecution, and portrays himself as a lone warrior standing against moral decay. His online followers, though smaller than mainstream pastors, are fiercely loyal, drawn to his unfiltered approach and conviction that the modern church has gone soft. 11. Bishop Daniel Abinum, the Angel of Ghana, and his miracles of controversy. In the heart of Ghana's Pentecostal movement, few names stir as much debate as Bishop Daniel Abinum. Charismatic, bold, and larger than life, Abinum built his reputation as a self-proclaimed angel of God, a man who claimed to walk between the physical and spiritual realms. As the founder of the International God's Way Church, he attracted thousands of followers who believed he possessed extraordinary powers. To his congregation, Bishop Abinum wasn't just a pastor. He was a living miracle, a direct messenger from heaven who could heal, prophesy, and even transcend human limits. But behind the fame and fiery sermons lies a storm of controversy. Over the years, Bishop Abinum has been arrested multiple times, from allegations of assault to accusations of financial misconduct and fraud. In one widely publicized incident, he was detained for allegedly defrauding a businessman of large sums of money. In another, he faced backlash after being filmed publicly whipping 2 young congregants for what he called immoral acts. Each controversy seemed to draw more attention to him, and rather than retreat, Abinum used the spotlight to further solidify his image as a misunderstood man of God facing persecution. Perhaps the most bizarre moment of his ministry are tied to his miracle claims, stories that seem more mystical than ministerial. He has publicly declared that he can transform into animals in the spirit realm, fly through the air to rescue people in danger, and enter the dreams of his followers to heal or deliver them. These supernatural declarations have made him both a spectacle and a symbol, admired by believers who see him as a prophet with divine gifts, and mocked by skeptics who see a man exploiting faith for fame. Through every scandal, Bishop Daniel Abinum remains defiant. He insists his power is real and his calling divine, portray himself as a man misunderstood by the world but chosen by God. Whether seen as a spiritual visionary or a master of religious theatrics, Abinum's story reflects the complexity of modern-day faith, where charisma and controversy often walk hand in hand, and where the line between miracle and manipulation grows increasingly hard to see. 12. Prophet Shepherd Bushiri, the rise and fall of Major One. Prophet Shepherd Bushiri, known to his followers as Major One, rose from humble beginnings in Malawi to become one of Africa's most recognized and controversial prophets. With charisma, confidence, and a powerful media presence, he built a multi-million-dollar ministry, the Enlightened Christian Gathering, ECG, that attracted massive crowds across southern Africa. Bushiri presented himself as a modern-day miracle worker, a man chosen by God to bring prosperity and healing to the faithful. His services were spectacles of faith and wealth, with luxury cars, designer suits, and private jets becoming symbols of divine blessing. But behind the glamorous image, investigators alleged a darker reality. Bushiri and his wife, Mary, were charged with fraud and money laundering, accused of scamming followers out of millions through so-called miracle investments. The South African authorities claimed that the couple lured people with promises of supernatural financial returns, blessings that would multiply their money in miraculous ways. When the scheme began to unravel, it exposed a complex web of deceit, greed, and manipulation that stunned even his most loyal supporters. The legal battles that followed turned into an international spectacle. After being granted bail in South Africa, Bushiri fled to Malawi, claiming that his life was in danger and that he would not receive a fair trial. His escape made headlines across the continent, turning Major One from a revered prophet into a fugitive pastor. Yet even in the midst of scandal, Bushiri maintained his innocence, insisting that he was a victim of jealousy and persecution from corrupt systems that could not handle his success and spiritual influence. Despite the mounting accusations, Prophet Shepherd Bushiri remains an influential figure. His followers continue to defend him, viewing his troubles as proof of divine testing rather than guilt. His story is one of faith and fortune colliding, a cautionary tale about how the pursuit of spiritual power and material prosperity can blur the boundaries between ministry and manipulation. Whether seen as a prophet or fraud, Bushri's legacy has become a defining symbol of the complex intersection between religion, money, and modern-day charisma in Africa's megachurch era. 13.
Sit on me. I need you to.
Bishop Noel Jones, the charismatic bachelor of the pulpit. Bishop Noel Jones has long been one of the most eloquent and magnetic voices in modern ministry. As the senior pastor of the City of Refuge Church in California and one of the stars of the reality show Preachers of El Day, he became known for his sharp intellect, captivating sermons, and smooth delivery to his congregation and television audience. Bishop Jones represented a fusion of sophistication and spirituality, a man who could preach fire from the pulpit while carry himself with the cool confidence of celebrity. But as his fame grew, so did curiosity and criticism surrounding his personal life. Unlike many of his peers, Bishop Jones remained unmarried for decades, and his bachelor lifestyle became a topic of public speculation. Viewers of Preachers of El Day saw glimpses of his close friendship with singer Loretta Jones, a relationship that stirred endless debate. Was it platonic, romantic, or something in between? For years, he avoided clear answers, saying only that he valued his independence and wasn't ready to settle down. To many in the church world, this open defiance of traditional expectations for a pastor created tension. Critics accused him of sending mixed messages, preaching holiness while appearing to live like a man caught between the pulpit and the pleasures of the world. His love life became tabloid fodder, and his reluctance to marry raised questions about the balance between personal freedom and pastoral responsibility. Still, Jones never wavered in his confidence. He argued that his calling as a preacher didn't require him to conform to public expectations about marriage or appearance, insisting that his spiritual life spoke louder than his relationship status. In later years, Bishop Jones eventually surprised many when he did marry Loretta after more than 2 decades of companionship. The wedding, coming after years of speculation, seemed to close a chapter that followed him for much of his career. Yet the story of Bishop Noel Jones remains emblematic of a deeper truth, that even the most gifted spiritual leaders wrestle with personal choices, public scrutiny, and the challenge of living under the relentless gaze of the world. His journey reflects not scandal in the traditional sense, but the tension between image, intimacy, and identity in the life of a man of God.
In the moment. So I'm talking about I'm operating in life and my true identity.
Pastor Creflo Dollar, The Price of Prosperity. Pastor Creflo Dollar is one of the most recognizable faces of the prosperity gospel movement. A preacher whose name became synonymous with faith, wealth, and divine success. As the founder of World Changers Church International in Atlanta, he built a multi-million-dollar empire on the message that it's God's will for you to prosper. His sermons about abundance, luxury, and blessings drew massive crowds, and his influence extended far beyond the pulpit through television, books, and global ministries. To his followers, Creflo Dollar embodied the rewards of unwavering faith. To his critics, he represented the commercialization of Christianity. But the glittering image of prosperity began to crack when controversy struck. In 2012, Pastor Dollar was arrested for allegedly assaulting his teenage daughter during a heated argument at home. The story shocked the Christian community. A man who preached love and discipline from the pulpit, now facing accusations of physical violence within his own family. Though the charges were later dropped after counseling, the incident left a lasting mark on his public image and sparked discussions about the hidden pressures pastors face behind closed doors. Then came another storm, the private jet scandal. In 2015, Creflo Dollar made global headlines when he asked his congregation and online followers to contribute funds toward a $65 million Gulfstream G650 jet, saying it was needed to continue his ministry work around the world. The request ignited fierce backlash, with many accusing him of greed and extravagance. Memes, news reports, and public debates erupted over whether a man of God should live like a billionaire, while many of his followers struggled to make ends meet. Dollar later defended himself, saying critics misunderstood his mission, and that prosperity was not about selfishness, but about glorifying God through excellence. Despite the uproar, Pastor Creflo Dollar continues to lead one of America's most influential megachurches. His followers remain loyal, drawn to his teachings on faith and financial empowerment. Yet, His story remains one of the most striking examples of how easily the line between divine prosperity and material excess can blur. For some, he is proof that God rewards the faithful. For others, he symbolizes the moral cost of the gospel that measures blessing by bank account. In the end, Creflo Dollar's journey is both a testament to resilience and a reflection of the deep divisions within modern Christianity over what it truly means to be blessed. 15. Reverend Jesse Jackson, the private fall of a public icon. For decades, Reverend Jesse Jackson stood as a towering figure in American history, a voice for justice, equality, and the power of faith in the fight for civil rights. A protege of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Jackson carried forward the legacy of nonviolent activism through his organizations, Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition. His words stirred hope in the hearts of millions. His presence demanded respect on the global stage, and his image symbolized moral conviction and leadership. To many, he was not just a pastor or politician, but a moral compass for the black community and the nation at large. But even the most revered leaders are human, and in 2001, Jesse Jackson faced a scandal that shook his reputation to its core. It was revealed that he fathered a child out of wedlock with a former employee of his organization, a revelation that cut deep for a man who had built his career on principles of family, faith, and integrity. The news came as a shock to the public, especially to those who saw him as a symbol of moral uprightness. Jackson admitted to the affair, took responsibility for his daughter, and temporarily stepped away from public life to reflect and reconcile with his family. The scandal drew intense media attention. Critics accused him of hypocrisy, pointing out that he had often spoken about family values and the sanctity of marriage. Supporters, however, saw a man caught in the painful tension between his private failures and his lifelong service to others. Jackson himself expressed deep remorse, acknowledging his mistake, but urging that his legacy not be defined by a single lapse in judgment. His honesty, though humbling, could not erase the disappointment felt by those who once viewed him as a moral giant. In the years that followed, Reverend Jesse Jackson slowly rebuilt his public life, focusing once again on social justice, poverty, and racial equality. The scandal remains a stain on his personal record, but also serves as a reminder of the humanity behind the pedestal. Jackson's story is one of both greatness and frailty, a testament to how even the most powerful voices of righteousness can stumble, yet still strive to rise again. His life remains a complicated portrait of leadership, legacy, and the enduring struggle between faith, forgiveness, and the flaws that make us all human.